I got myself a little bit of a buzz cut there. So, welcome back everybody. Thanks for stopping by and checking out the video. Please subscribe to our channel. Get a chance while you're watching this video. Okay, so I've talked about the yard long bean, the asparagus bean, the Chinese long bean. It's got several different names, and I've did a feature video specific to this plant earlier in the year, and I wanted to come back now and talk a little bit about the second stage, maybe you could say, of harvesting this bean. So throughout the year I've been harvesting the younger beans and, you know, blanching them and whatnot, and blanching them and freezing them. I've brought that up before about how many that I did, 15 pounds. But now here we are, and we've passed the mid part of September. I can't believe it's already mid-September. It seems like I was just out here, I think probably wearing this same sweatshirt and hat, showing you how to make dandelion jelly, and that was back in March or April, and now here we are in September, and the garden is, you know, in its finishing stages, minus some of the winter squash that are finishing up and whatnot. Anyway, so I wanted to come out and get some of these yard long bean seeds. This is the second stage. So after you've been harvesting the long beans throughout the summer and eating them fresh or freezing them for later green bean style uses for later, you know, over the winter, this is a dual purpose bean. So you can let them dry on the vine. And I'm gonna pick one of these here. See if I can get this up on the camera where it comes out okay. But you know, they're starting to get a little crispy, and you don't even have to wait this long. You can actually pick them earlier. Once they start getting, you can start seeing the beans inside. You'll see there's like little bumps on them where the beans are, and they don't have to be completely brown. You could actually pick them earlier and then dry them inside, either underneath of a grow light, or just hang them up, you know, like in your shed or garage, someplace where it's going to stay dry. Or you can let them dry on the vine. I've let a lot of mine mostly dry on the vine. I got a lot of brown ones out here. But we're supposed to get some rain tonight, so I figured I'd come out here and start picking some of these beans and basically shelling them so that I can use them to just eat as a dried bean instead of like the green snap bean style. So let me pick some of these, and then we'll shell them and I'll show you what the beans look like. While I was out picking the beans, felt something fall and hit my foot. It was a woolly bear, little woolly bear caterpillar. This one is all tan, and I know that there's you know, the different old farmer's tales or whatever you want to call them about, you know, if they're all mostly tan, then it's supposed to mean that you're going to have a mild winter. If they've got more black on them than tan, then you're going to have a harsh winter. But last year I found ones just like this that were all black. Here, buddy. Let's put you someplace where you can crawl safely. I found ones that were all black last fall, and we had the mildest winter that I can ever remember. So I wouldn't really judge how your winter is going to turn out based off of woolly bear caterpillars. But you know, they're pretty cute and they're fuzzy. So I'm going to go put him on a plant where he can hang out. Okay, so I got quite a stack going on here, as you can see, and I pulled a couple of different different beans in different stages of the drying on the vine process. Like, so we've got this one here, which is really turning dark. Hope that comes up on the camera okay. Whereas like this one here is still green, so this one isn't dried out all the way yet. And then I've got ones that are kind of in between that are like a lighter color. To dry these completely, like I said, you can store them inside for a while, or you can shell the beans first. You would lay them out like on a sheet pan once you've shelled them, and let them finish drying before you would store them in, say, like a mason jar or Tupperware or something like that in a cool, dark place. But you want to make sure that they are completely dry, because if you have some beans that are in there that are still moist, that moisture is going to cause like bacteria and whatnot to grow. So make sure your beans are completely dry before you store them in an airtight container. Then, or I should say maybe, you know, you can just pop these open and start pulling out the beans. Probably should have this zoomed up a little bit better so you can see what's going on. Let me do that. So I'm just kind of pulling the bean apart here, and then getting the little beans out from inside. Another way to do this, they're all dropping out on me. Another way that you can do this is if you let these beans get really dry so that they're real crispy, you could then just kind of crunch them up in a bowl, and then basically you would be separating the chaff from the bean that you want to save, like that. But I've chosen to just shell them this way instead of having to deal with all this chaff that I then have to, you know, clean out. This way, with just splitting it open, if I do it over a bowl, they just kind of fall right out into the bowl, and then I can just dispose of the outer shell of the bean and not deal with all the mess. Now, one thing I wanted to show you here too, that bean's a little sketchy looking. So I grew two different varieties of long beans this year, and you can see the difference in the color in the seeds. The one is black, and one is more of a brownish color, dark brown. So they end up kind of being the same thing. Also, there's a purple variety that has a brown bean. Now, I grew two different varieties of a green yard long bean, but they have different colored seeds. One's black, one's brown. So just to show you that kind of mix that you could end up with depending on the variety that you grow. Shelling beans is a tedious job. You know, some of these shells will kind of split right apart and all your beans will pop out real easy, but most of them, you know, you're kind of going one at a time. But you know, you can get your little Zen moments out of this. If any of you were fortunate enough to grow up with maybe snapping green beans with grandma, or shelling lima beans, or shelling peas with grandma, you know, now you can start your own tradition, get the kids involved, and sit out, have maybe some good background music playing, some good conversation, and spend a nice, beautiful fall afternoon shelling beans, telling stories. You know, it's part of what this whole gardening, homesteading, farming, you know, whatever category you put yourself in, but that's really what this lifestyle is about, is appreciating the moments with each other and appreciating your harvest and being thankful that you've got all this good stuff that you grew yourself and can help sustain you or your family or both. So this is going to take me a while because Mitzi's working right now, so I'm out here. She's working for the man. I'm out here just doing the garden stuff. So, and I know that she actually would much prefer to be doing this than what she's doing right now. She's also very good with more of this tedious stuff. A few years ago, we grew some winter wheat, and then we harvested it and made flour out of it. But once I cut down all the, the stalks of grain or whatever, she went through and picked all the wheat berries by hand. Just kind of, sat there watching the Waltons or Little House on the Prairie or something like that while she went through and picked all the wheat berries. And she actually enjoys doing those kind of things much more than I do. I'm a little bit more, what is it, ADHD, I guess. I get distracted pretty quick or get bored with things pretty quick. When it comes to these tedious things, I'm ready to move on to the next project. But for this case today, I'm on my own, and I am gonna have to work my way through these. But I won't make you sit here and watch me yap along and do this. So we'll check back when I'm done and show you what I got so far today. Alright y'all, so I am finishing up these last couple of little beans here out of this batch that I picked. And I don't know, might have a couple of cups here, which is plenty for a test batch recipe. Now, if you are wanting to just dry your beans to save them, to plant them for next year, like I said, make sure all the moisture is out of them, and so like spread them out in a sheet pan to finish drying them out if you need to. Put them in an airtight container and put them in a cool, dark place over the winter, and then these would all be viable beans that you could plant next year. Now, even just, this doesn't seem like a lot, especially since I have them in this big bowl. See if I can show that on the camera without spilling them out. That would make me mad. But that is a lot of beans for planting, because these beans are so prolific. You wouldn't even need an eighth of these. As I mentioned on a couple of previous videos and even earlier, I froze 15 pounds of these beans when they were young, using them as snap beans, and then I just stopped picking them so that they would slow in their production. If I continued to pick them, they would have continued to produce flowers and put more out. But at that point I figured 15 pounds is probably enough to cover us over the winter. Plus I still have seeds left of the ones that I bought last year. And those will be viable still next year and probably for a couple years out. that I can plant more next year. So I'm not really needing these to save necessarily to plant more beans with these two varieties. Now, in the future, what I may do is actually plant a little bit more and then sell them, and so I'll want more beans, but for right now, this is going to be enough. And this amount of beans is enough for a test batch recipe. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go up and rinse these out in a colander. I mean, with shelling them this way, you don't get nowhere near the amount of chaff. If you had just let them completely dry and then crunched them all up, then you'd have to separate all that. That way actually might be faster if you're willing to wait for the beans to dry out. I just figured, you know, I had some time this afternoon, I'll go ahead and shell them. And I've got a mix of fairly dry beans, and then, like, you know, I showed you earlier some of the more younger beans, I guess. They're not quite as mature, so they're a little, you know, they've got more moisture in them and they're plumper. But once I wash these out, I'll wash out the little bits of chaff that did get in there, and sometimes little bits of the shell does stick to the bean. Like, you probably can't see it on the camera because it's pretty small, but it's got some white, like, little bits on it. So I'll kind of wash these off. Then I'm going to soak them in water overnight. I'll probably just put them in a container, cover them with water. I'll probably stick them in the fridge and just soak them overnight. And then I'll do another rinse tomorrow. And then we will go to the next part of this, where we're going to do a little test recipe with these. Initially, I thought, you know, because the beans are black and dark brown, they kind of reminded me of your general black beans, or, you know, some of the darker beans that you would use in Mexican dishes. And I was like, oh, I could put some like ancho powder in here and some cumin. But then I tasted one of the younger beans that was a little bit more plump. Still tastes kind of like a green bean with that hint of asparagus that this bean is known for. So I wasn't quite sure if those types of flavors like ancho and cumin would lend itself well to a more greener tasting bean. You know, with your standard black bean or some of the other dark brown beans, they have a much more richer earthy flavor that goes well with those like heavier spices. Whereas these, you know, even though they are a dark colored bean, they have a much lighter flavor. So I think tomorrow we will mix these with some garlic and some cilantro and maybe some lime or lemon juice. I don't know if I have any lime juice. I'll have to check. If not, I'll have to substitute lemon. Although lime would probably be better. But kind of maybe make like more, make more of a simple kind of light vinaigrette that still has some of those Mexican style flavors, I guess you'd say, you know, with the cilantro and lime garlic kind of thing going on. But I think that might blend better with this than the more earthy type spices. So that'll be our next step, and then we'll see how that turns out with a taste test. So with the magic of YouTube editing, let's go with that. Or let's go there next. Yeah, let's go there next. But in real time, I gotta wait for tomorrow to do that, because I need to soak those beans first. Okay, so it's the next day, and now we are going to do a little test recipe with these beans. They came out really pretty once they've soaked in the water and have been washed off a couple of times. And I got a nice mix of the black and brown in here. And this is going to be just a real simple thing. I'm hoping it's something that can be good that would just go on rice. My camera's crooked. So I think this is going to be a really simple recipe, just something that could go on like maybe top of rice or something like that, or as an addition to like a burrito. So I just got a couple of garlic cloves here. I would say, because these aren't very big garlic cloves, so maybe like if you have really big garlic cloves, then just use one. I'm using like 1.5 of the size that I have. And I have about 1/4 cup of cilantro here that I just picked out of the garden. And we're gonna just kind of chop this up a little bit. This isn't very level right here. Let's see what's going on. So, like I said, about 1/4 cup of cilantro, and just want to mince that up. Doesn't have to be super perfect. As you can see, I do not have the knife skills to have a show on the Food Network. All right, so we got that. Get our garlic cloves. Get those peeled. Great thing about cooking outside is like when you've got like garlic peels and stuff like that, you know, you can just toss them over the edge of the deck. Reduces the amount of cleaning. All right, and then we're gonna mince up our garlic. Okay, that's pretty good. I brought out 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. I think lime would be better, but I don't have any limes or lime juice, so we're just gonna substitute some lemon juice. And some olive oil, some sea salt, and some black pepper. That's it, man. But now we're gonna cook them. So let's go cook this stuff. Okay, so I'm just using the little side burner on my propane grill here. So let's see if I can remember how to start this thing. All right, we've got flame. Turn that down some. This thing does get pretty hot, so we're gonna put just some drizzle of olive oil in here. I don't know, maybe about a tablespoon, give or take. Get our garlic going in here. Along with a couple pieces of cilantro, but that's fine. And so we're just gonna cook this in the oil a little bit. I didn't bring out a good stirring spoon, but just enough to kind of cook up the garlic to soften it up. Maybe get a little browning going on it here and there, but nothing too extreme. And it's really going to depend on how hot your burner runs. Because I'm out here on this grill, these tend to run hotter than what I have going on inside. All right, let's add our beautiful beans. This smells very green beany right now. And one thing I didn't mention for one of the ingredients is I'm actually going to add some water to this to kind of let them cook down a little bit more. Because even though they soaked overnight, they're still going to be, you know, more of a dried bean, just like you would cook dried beans for a while. These are going to need to soak up some more moisture as they cook. So we're going to let that moisture, or the water that I just put in there, we're going to let that reduce. We're going to let that cook for a little bit. Kind of on a low to medium heat. Let it simmer. It's hard to get a decent simmer on this grill. Everything tends to want to boil. And while this is simmering, add some black pepper to taste. I like black pepper, so I'm adding a fair amount. No measurements here. I should say also this ended up being about 1.5 cups of beans. So if you decide to do this in the future, this will kind of give you a gauge on what I'm working with. I'm also going to add a few big pinches of sea salt here. Give this a bit of a stir. Okay, so I actually, because this was cooking down so fast because of the way this burner is, I added a little bit more water and a little bit more salt. If you were just cooking on your stove and you've got a low simmer, you know, low and slow would probably be better. So you can see here now, pretty much all the water, or most of the water has cooked out of it. So now we're going to add the lemon juice. This is 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Again, I would recommend using lime instead of lemon, but this will do in a pinch. And we are going to add about half of the cilantro. Maybe about 3/4 of the cilantro. So I think, I didn't measure it, but it was probably about 1/4 cup of cilantro. So once most of your moisture is cooked out, add your lemon juice and 3/4 of cilantro. And we're going to let that cook down a little bit more and let the lemon juice or lime juice and the cilantro flavors kind of infuse in there. I cannot explain to you how good this smells. Like what Emerald used to say, we need smell-o-vision. Okay, so I let that liquid reduce down a little bit more. And again, this cooked down too fast because of the way this side grill works. It's not good for a really low simmer. So if you're cooking on the stove, you want to cook it low and slow, probably for a good 20 or 30 minutes at least. This probably ran on kind of high, or at a more of a higher than a simmer, more almost a boil. So cook it a little bit longer with the moisture slowly simmering down, low and slow, like I said. So I'm going to do a little taste test here. Got the remaining, I'm dropping it, remaining bit of fresh cilantro from the garden. I'm going to sprinkle in here. And again, I think this would be really good on rice, like a jasmine rice or some lime cilantro rice. But for the taste test, I'm just having the beans as they are. So let's see how this goes. Man, these are really good. They'd be a little bit better if I had cooked them a little lower and slower. The texture would be better. They're still not quite as soft as I think that they should be. But these on top of rice, wow. Or these would be really good like in a soft taco too. Especially if you're doing like a vegetarian dish. And one thing that I have noticed here is that more earthy flavors came out. They kind of, the green bean asparagus thing that they normally have going on kind of cooks out and they get more earthy. More like a black bean or kidney bean or that kind of thing as they cook down. This bug or bee wants some too. Man, that's really good. So, there you have it. Stage 2 of the long bean. Shelling them when they're dry, soaking them overnight, and then just cooking them up with some lemon juice, garlic, salt, pepper, cilantro. It's a great side dish, topping for rice or in a taco, soft taco, or a hard shell taco. That would work too. But man, that's a good bean. I'm really happy with the way that came out, and I will definitely be making this again. I think next time though, I'll cook it inside so that I can get them a little bit softer than what they are. But really, even with this faster cooking method, the texture is not bad. It's just, I think it would be better a little bit softer. So, grow yourself some yard long beans, Chinese long beans, Taiwan long green beans, light long green beans. And then there's also the purple variety. There's several different varieties of the long bean, the yard long bean. And you can find different versions of them online. But grow them, try them when they're young as a snap bean. They're really good like in stir fries or even just as a replacement for green beans. And then you can let them mature on the vine and end up with a nice side bean dish. So there you go. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me today and watching this long video on beans. And I hope you try it out. Let me know if you do and how it turned out for you, or if you added additional spices, or you know what recipe that you used. I'm always looking for new recipes. But you know, please subscribe to our channel and click on the little bell so that you get the updates for any time that we upload new content. And whatever you're doing in your neck of the woods, at your homesteads and your gardens, I hope that you are having a fantastic day and are having some good eats out of your gardens. And I guess that's it for now. Namaste. Oh, just had a bug come join me. Let me try to get in my bowl. So good. Cheers.